The cubs' desperate cries pierced the scorching African savanna as their mother lay motionless beside the dried riverbed, her breaths shallow and labored. Two tiny lions, barely 3 months old, stood over Nalady's trembling body, their high-pitched wails carrying across the dusty plains. Blood seeped from deep gashes on her hind legs, wounds inflicted by a pack of hyenas that had ambushed her during the night while she hunted to feed her babies. The cubs didn't understand death, but they understood fear. They understood that their mother, who had never failed to protect them, now couldn't even lift her head. As the sun climbed higher, casting merciless heat across the grassland, the little ones knew they needed help. Their survival instincts screamed that time was running out. That's when they saw him, Bongani, the oldest bull elephant in the region, moving slowly through the acacia trees with his herd. The cubs looked at each other, then at their dying mother, then back at the massive gray giants approaching the waterhole. Without hesitation, the bolder of the two cubs sprinted toward the elephants, stumbling over rocks and thorny brush, crying out with every ounce of strength in his tiny body. Bongani stopped. His ancient eyes, which had witnessed 50 years of life and death on these plains, focused on the small golden cub blocking his path. The calf was trembling, but refused to move, continuing to cry and look back toward where his mother lay. The other elephants in the herd grew restless, trumpeting warnings, but Bongani raised his trunk, a signal for silence and stillness. The cub ran a few steps toward Nalady, then returned to Bongani, repeating this desperate dance over and over. The message was clear: "Follow me, please follow me." Something deep within the old elephant's heart stirred. He had seen countless deaths in his lifetime, had lost family members to drought, poachers, and predators, but he had never seen such raw desperation in a creature so small. Against every natural instinct, against the protests of his herd, Bongani followed the cub. Each step seemed to take an eternity as his massive legs carried his 6-ton body across the uneven terrain. The second cub remained by Nalady's side, licking her face, nudging her with her tiny paws, refusing to accept what seemed inevitable. When Bongani reached the fallen lioness, he stopped and assessed the situation with the wisdom of his years. Nalady's eyes fluttered open briefly, catching sight of the enormous elephant standing over her. She should have felt fear. Elephants and lions were not friends, but she was too weak for fear, too close to death's door to care about ancient rivalries. The old bull could see the problem immediately. Nalady was severely dehydrated, weakened by blood loss, and the infected wounds were poisoning her body. But she wasn't dead yet. Bongani turned and bellowed, a deep, resonating call that echoed across the savanna. Within minutes, 3 female elephants from his herd cautiously approached, though they kept their distance from the predator and her cubs. What happened next defied everything known about the natural order. Bongani used his trunk to push dust over Nalady's wounds, an elephant remedy to stop bleeding and prevent infection. Then he trumpeted again, and one of the female elephants approached the dried riverbed. Using her powerful trunk, she began digging into the earth where the riverbed curved. She dug and dug, going deeper and deeper into the ancient watercourse. The cubs watched in amazement as, after nearly an hour of excavation, muddy water began seeping into the hole. The female elephant drew up the precious liquid in her trunk and walked over to Nalady, spraying the life-giving water across the lioness's face and into her mouth. Nalady's tongue moved instinctively, lapping at the moisture. Her eyes opened wider. For the next 3 hours, as the sun beat down relentlessly, the elephants took turns bringing water to the dying lioness and shading her massive body with their own. The cubs stayed close, drawing courage from these unlikely saviors.
Slowly, impossibly, Naledi began to revive. The water rehydrated her body, giving her strength. The dust coating had stopped the bleeding and was already working to fight the infection. As evening approached, Naledi finally struggled to her feet. She was weak, unsteady, but alive. The cubs rushed to her side, crying joyfully, rubbing against her legs. Naledi looked up at Bongani, and for a long moment, predator and prey locked eyes in understanding. She dipped her head, the only thank you a lion could offer an elephant. Bongani trumpeted softly, then turned and led his herd away toward the waterhole. But before he left, he used his trunk to push several branches bearing protein-rich acacia leaves closer to where Naledi rested, food for her recovery. The lioness and her cubs remained by the excavated water source for 3 days, drinking from the elephant-made well, slowly regaining their strength. Word of the miracle spread across the savanna through the mysterious communication network that exists between wild creatures. The hyenas that had attacked Naledi never returned, perhaps warned away by other animals who had witnessed the elephant's protection. When Naledi finally felt strong enough to move, she led her cubs to higher ground where she could hunt and recover fully. Bongani continued his migration patterns, but rangers reported seeing him return to that dried riverbed every year afterward, always checking the well he had helped dig, always pausing at the spot where a mother's life had hung in the balance. The cubs grew into strong young lions who never forgot the gray giants who saved their family when all hope seemed lost. Sometimes nature writes stories that restore our faith in the world, stories that prove compassion isn't owned by any single species, that mercy can flow between the most unlikely hearts. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible true tales from the wild that will remind you why this beautiful planet is worth protecting.